legs. Rise up, standard price, the loss of legs. My occupation, in essence, not complacent. Block the banquet, stop the computation. I'ma make the coda, fools just wanna make the quota. They can't rock around here, they need baking soda. This a hydra, no way they taking over. Lay them below the basement with snakes and cobras.
You get to that point in your career where you kind of want to tell your own story and do it your way just to see. And if you fail, at least you put it out there. But that's kind of where I'm at. Plus, I like this is like new territory right now with all the publishing, and obviously now distribution has just gone out the window. And it was always that fear, but at the same time it's exciting. So I'm kind of right in between, like really scared of everything and like really excited.
This is the Inkpulp podcast.
Good morning.
Good morning, Eric.
Good morning. It's still morning for you. You are 3 hours ahead of me. I am in the Oregon coast. You are in the midst of Hotlanta.
Yes, and it's getting hot.
Yeah, this is that's not a lead-in to some weird song that you're about to sing, right?
No.
This is episode 150 now.
141.
140 what now?
Yeah, 141.
141.
Yeah.
All right, so this is episode 141 of the Inkpulp podcast. It is June 7th, Wednesday, 2023. Thank you once again for all of you guys who have been watching previously, and those of you who are about to watch this episode. Thank you to MATTEO Scalera, who continues to pay for our audience attendance. One person at a time, we're going to get them. And they're about $14.99 a head. So this is really starting to get expensive for that Italian, especially because he's paying in euro. Speaking of the Italian, he can't join us. He's away enjoying life.
That motherfucker.
We are toiling away in the studio, making sure this thing is more successful than when he left it, but I'm sure he'll take all the credit for it when he gets back.
Oh, God. You know what? It's gonna be a brutal episode when he comes back.
It's really gonna be annoying. That's the one where I'll have to kindly and gracefully exclude myself from the invite, even though I'm the one sending it out. My name is Eric Canete, and I am here with our amazing. That's the best way that I can describe it. Our amazing, our gracious. Is magnanimous too big?
Nah, nothing's too big.
All right. No, that's not true. Anyway, Shawn's here.
What up?
Thank you, Shawn. Episode 141, buddy. We haven't been doing this for 141 episodes. I feel like we have. As a matter of fact, it's so emotionally, psychologically taxing on me. I feel like we've been doing this for a while now. Hey, correct me if I'm wrong. Was I the first guest on your previous incarnate?
Yeah.
We did it every year.
Inkpulp
once a year.
We're the first guest, and every year started with a new episode with you.
Yeah. All right. So I got sick of that, and I said, forget this thing. Right. Now, speaking of somebody that we can't forget, we have an amazing artist that's going to be joining us today, whose level of professionalism, I think, outclasses everybody in this podcast.
Yeah, and in fact,
by the way, we loosely call this a podcast. It's not, but let me just walk them in so we can talk about how awful this experience is for me, but potentially for her as well. Ladies and gentlemen, here's Tia. Tia, before I say your name incorrectly, say your name out loud and in full for us, please.
SIYA OUM.
Oh, there it is. It's
no, it's not.
It is it?
No, it's not.
Okay, quit messing around. I almost felt bad.
It's SIYA.
SIYA, and then the last name is pronounced?
OUM.
Okay, so the last name is
God dang it.
SIYA. I was just
there it is.
To gush over your professionalism, and then your camera cuts out.
Shawn, SIYA, Shawn.
Hello.
We were talking about your production value all of 2 days ago.
Before you do.
Yeah, go.
If this camera cuts out again, I'm going to switch to the webcam, and because I haven't figured out how to keep my Canon on the whole time. So
yeah.
Listen, it's okay. The Canon is there specifically for the high level of production. It's not necessarily there for web streaming. You're gracing us with this version of the camera. We'll get another version of it should ever come out, by the way. So here's the thing. Shawn and I were complimenting. Well, I knew the production value because I had been on your show. Thank you so much for having me. We chit-chatted a little bit
You're
about
welcome,
the process.
man.
Shawn was not aware of it until I sent him in that direction, and immediately he goes like, holy shit, does she edit and shoot her own stuff?
Yeah.
And I said like, yeah, Shawn, that's what professional looks like. This rinky-dink operation.
Oh my God.
You know?
Well, no, I mean, it was pretty humbling what I saw. I don't know how you have the time to learn that. Do you have a background in editing, or you learned it for the podcast?
I have, a little bit of a video background from college, but that was like years ago. So it's nothing like what it is now. But then I think it's just, I'm obsessed, like what Eric says, like know what you think is good and then don't compromise. And so that's kind of where I went with that, because I love film, so.
And it shows.
Yeah. So, look, you just put it on a Post-it and stick it on your screen. Know what looks good and do not compromise.
I don't need that when I have you. All right.
No. I'm talking about Shawn. Shawn actually. Here's the thing.
I'm writing it down
and
right now.
Sia texted me yesterday, and she was like, when I read it, I laughed. I giggled to myself because I'm like, I don't know what you think you're walking into. You know what I mean? Like, it's almost like somebody asking you, hey, you want to go out to dinner, And then they ask you like, oh, what's the dress code? You're like, oh, do you have to dress nice? And I'm all like, get out of here with the dressing nice, And so she goes like, hey, do you guys do any sort of like, is there like a promotional thing that you guys do for this show? And I laughed my ass off. And I go like, listen, perfectly honest, full disclosure, I just do this because I want to hang out with these guys. They're the ones that want to take it seriously, especially when MATTEO came on. They're like, we need to get an editor. We need to start getting guests on.
Let's see it. But I mean, let's look at Eric's camera, listen to Eric's voice. Yeah, he's not just doing this to hang out.
No, hold on. I had this equipment, and it just happened to be that we're hanging out now. You know what I mean?
Well, what do you have the equipment for, if not this?
I was going to start streaming. That's what it was for.
And that's what you're doing.
Not to hang out with you guys. It is just, it is real. Like what you were expecting, maybe like a Michelin star restaurant, you are not going to get that. This is definitely like the worst kind of food truck that instead of food truck, it's like
that, man. You're not giving yourself enough credit. Sometimes I just want a cheeseburger at a really fancy restaurant.
Is that everybody with a cheeseburger?
Yeah, man.
The cheeseburger.
All right, so thank you for being here. We appreciate it. I as a matter of fact, it's incredibly charming that the camera keeps cutting out X amount of like minutes, because it makes me feel so much better about like the freaking trash bin fire.
I'm gonna figure it out at some point. I really am gonna figure it out. But like, yeah, this is kind of interesting because it was either that or I freeze and stuff because I live in the woods. So like, there's no telling what the glitch is gonna be. So the fact that you guys could hear me and see me, like that's a world of a difference.
This is awesome. This is awesome. Speaking of living in the woods, do you find it?
Montana. This is like exactly what I'm doing right now.
You live in Montana?
Yeah, I do. In a cabin, and I'm drinking coffee.
And how long have you lived there?
October 2020. Shit.
And where were you before Montana?
Okay, so we were back in Seattle for a bit. And then right before that, we were in Amsterdam for a few months and then Hawaii. But we kind of rotate between Hawaii and Seattle for the most part up until now. And so now we're permanently in Montana.
So what brought you to Montana? Just to get away from everything?
Well, that too, but it was definitely because I love the outdoors, and we were backpackers for over a decade. So I just got tired of driving to the mountains all the time. So here you just kind of step outside, about 15 minutes and you're somewhere.
Wow.
Have you seen any of Sia's photos whenever she leaves civilization? It's pretty dang cool. It's like it's everything that you expect from like those 70s, photographs with like the big backpacks and nothing but wilderness. And you live through it, but you don't want, like me personally, I'm like, that's beautiful to look at. I never want to be out in the woods. I'm not programmed.
I mean, it's funny because like we were just on a hiking trip, and we were on a road trip for like it's over 10 days, and then we did this hike, and I haven't done it for a while, so we were out there and it was hot, and I'm like, why am I doing this still? I can't believe I'm doing this. It was gorgeous though.
have you found that you're working on your first creator? That's what we end up texting back and forth about, just to give people context. Like I don't know how we managed to run into each other. My memory is really weak. So like, but in recent times, what we've been doing is just texting back and forth about our creator-owned project, right? Can you go a little bit into that? Like what got you started down that path and saying like, hey, I'm going to do this on my own. I know that you had a couple of books previous, right? You had Lola for a little bit. And then you said, I'm going to go do this other thing.
I think, I don't know about you guys, but like I started out like early on, you know, thinking that no one's going to publish my book, or just in case no one does, to get all the skill sets together. So I was already on that path before college, before I finished college. And then my dream was always to work at Top Cow and stuff like that. And so once I did that, I'm like, you know, I kind of, you get to that point in your career where you kind of want to tell your own story and do it your way, just to see. And if you fail, at least you put it out there. But that's kind of where I'm at. Plus I like this is like new territory right now with all the publishing, and obviously now distribution has just gone out the window, and it was always that fear, but at the same time it's exciting. So I'm kind of right in between, like really scared of everything and like really excited.
Yeah. That's effectively, that's where our conversations sort of you know, orbit around, which is like, what are you doing? What am I doing? What's been working for you? What's been working for me? And we share notes that way. I think I remember in one of our offline conversations, it was just like, we're getting to a point in our careers now. And by the way, yours is a lot more like storied and bullet points, similar to Shawn. Shawn's got a lot of career bullet points going on. But like, we're getting to a point in our careers now where it's like, oh, that was fun, right? That was a chapter, that was a phase in our career. But we're starting to realize like, oh, that space that we were into before. And by the way, correct me if I'm wrong, if any of this is inaccurate. That space that we were in, the environment that we were in previously, that doesn't exist in that context anymore. It's a different space now. And me personally, I don't like the way it looks and feels anymore. So I'm going to go do this thing the way I think is going to be the most.
I'm on that same page with Eric.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
What do you think, Sia? Is that similar for you?
Oh, it is. And I think subconsciously I'm kind of gravitating towards people like you guys that have that same, you know, ambition and that vibe. Like we kind of feel like there's something just a little off, and it's not a bad thing for everybody, but at the same time, like it just doesn't work for me. And you know, sometimes you have like these goals and dreams that you don't think you're ever going to reach it in your lifetime, and when you finally do, you're like, okay, wait, I need new goals and dreams because it's not working out for me as an adult. So I find myself being I think we all get to that point, and then finally I'm like, okay, I'm at that age where like, if I love film, if I don't actually do something with it, it's never going to happen, because these type of things take years to get into. So instead of me just sitting around thinking, oh, I'll just do it next year after I'm done with this, like it never happens that way. Yeah. So I've started to kind of work my way towards that too. I was on set like with a friend like a couple weeks ago, and then just chatting with people. So it's like, if I don't try now, then like at what point is that going to happen? So
you're making moves to be in film and self-publish your own books.
I think I just want the independence. I just want to get to that point, because there's already vehicles for me, like with film, and like Lola's already been, there's already a division with film with that, and trying to sell it. So it's like, either I sit there and actually start to write things out and actually start to sell these things, these properties that I have already, or it's not going to happen. So while I obviously I don't want it to be too much of a jump where it's like it's drawing comics and then film where there's no connection. There's got to be a bridge somewhere. It's not like, oh, I'm doing comics to get into film. It's like, no, I've already done comics. I want to do my own IP, but definitely I want to get to film. So it's not like I know a lot of people pitch stories just to make it into film, whereas with me, it's like these are just things I love, and then like I just happen to be in the position to be able to do it, you know, a certain way, and that's why my camera is so expensive right now.
Yeah, we were talking about that the last time that we were doing it. You had me on your show, and you were telling me like your setup, and I'm like, Sia, we are not the same. Like, just because this camera turns on versus like, oh yeah, just because we're talking right now and you're shooting footage and so am I, we are not the same. Like, she showed me her camera, Shawn, and it's like a small investment. You know what I mean? It's like set up to shoot actual movies.
More than what you and is it like a Black Magic? Did you get a Black Magic?
No, it's less that. I mean, you don't need a Black Magic to be like to be at that level, but it can shoot film. Like I've seen filmmakers use the setup that she has to start shooting movies, you know? So it's like, oh yeah, no, this is not the same operation. You know what I mean? Like you have a major cruise liner with multiple ships in your fleet. I've got like a rinky-dink rowboat, and maybe I'll take out a motor and like let it put around the river.
But at least you could row it. Like with my motorboat, if the engine dies, I don't have the paddles right now, obviously.
Also, again, incredibly charming. The last time that we were shooting, I can't remember what happened where she like the volume cut out or like the battery cut out of the camera.
I had two cameras going, and then I was like, if one of them dies, now I have it plugged in, so that's not going to happen today. Now it shuts off.
Right. I don't know if it's one of those cameras that automatically shuts off after a certain amount of time.
You're supposed to change a setting, but I didn't have time to look it up because I was learning StreamYard. So I was watching that tutorial, so I never got to my camera.
See, okay, so here's another thing. Another thing about SIYA is the level of planning.
Yeah, I was
preparedness.
You watched a thing about StreamYard.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, oh, what is this thing? How am I supposed to make it
work?
What do you record on, SIYA? I have a lot of technical questions for you because you like just when I went to your YouTube channel. First off, when I click on it, there's a video that just starts playing, and I was like, "Why don't we have that?"
Like an intro,
and it sounds amazing. And then I start watching some of the podcasts, and I am just blown away at the production level.
I'm looking at your guys' stuff. It looks amazing. It sounds amazing.
Thank you. Well, Eric does.
You look and sound amazing. Seriously.
Thank you.
My God.
Yeah, you don't have to be nice. Like his footage, like his video image is like super cropped. You know, like the dude has like, I don't know what those things are in the background. They look like jars of just like candy back there on his desk. You know, like composition throws me off. You know, like again, I prepare for this space. Like you are never turned off. You are always like at the level of professionalism, the high bar that we should aspire. Like the light alone, right now you just adjusted the light because you're like, oh, I'm completely blown out. But even like whatever it is that's happening right now, whatever it is that's going on right now, as far as like the overall color composition that's going on in your space, looks really, really good. I remember 2 weeks ago, Matteo goes, hey, I can continue with this podcast, but can you please move a blanket in the background because it looks like you have a head of like hair sticking out of the back of your head. Now, like I'm not thinking about what's going on in the back. You know, I'm not going to AC and a paper shredder back there. If this is like the pro version, I'd shut everything down, turn on a bunch of lights. But again, it's a bunch of Sean's wearing a tank top for crying out loud. You know?
Is there a dress code now for the podcast?
There is. There absolutely is. You have video that's like cropped to the left and right of you. You know, like this. There's this bullet that's covering up 1/5 of like the freaking. It's just a hot mess, you know. But,
well, I feel really. Thank you guys for making me feel better about like just not knowing what I'm doing right now. So.
No, it's fine. As a matter of fact, I think the reason why we use StreamYard is because bozos like us just love being able to hit a button and then you just show up. The fact that you went to the extra step of like looking up how to make it work, that's freaking awesome.
Let me ask you, SIYA, what do you record through when you do your podcast?
I just upload the interview like what Eric does. So what we did was we used FaceTime so that we could talk to each other, and then we have 2 cameras going. And so I'm shooting with my DSLR. I mean, I should probably do it a different way, but for now, like it's working because the last interview I did, which is going to air, I think Friday, we tried it a different way, and it was a hot mess. Like I've been trying to fix the audio and video for a week now. So that's how we did it. And so now I have to try to figure out, like with people who don't have the cameras and the audio equipment, how can I make it so that it's interesting, even though they don't have everything? Because chances are 9 out of 10 times you're not going to have Eric and I's gear and your gear, basically, even the basic. Yeah, because yours looks great and sounds great, but often times like they just use FaceTime or
right, but
whatever apps they have. Yeah,
we need an editor is where we are. Someone to do all the things you're talking about now. I don't have the time to learn it. I don't have the time to do it. Eric doesn't have the time to learn it.
No. I don't have the interest.
Mateo's
That's the
just a
difference.
dumb guy.
there's always a chance that there's interest, right?
Yeah, but there's very low interest for me. I've like you guys are taking this way too seriously. I just like being able to hang out and catch up. And actually, one of the great additions to this whole thing is, and if I say this out loud, he's never gonna let me live it down. But Matteo actually started thinking about bringing people on, people who really particularly care for. In Matteo's case, his filtering system is like, who have I done covers for? And who can
but
I
in his
ask to
defense, it's kind of hard to find someone he hasn't done covers
for sure. But I think he leverages it. He goes like, hey, let me talk about your project, this thing that you're working on, but also let's spend the next 10 minutes talking about how I did a cover for you and how awesome it looks. So every time he brings one of those people on, I'm like, I need to knock down his cover. But in the case of like one of them, Sia, it was a genuinely awful cover. It was awful. He was overpaid. He should have paid the creator back. I'm talking about, he did a cover for Wes Craig's. By the way, he's not here, so I can talk shit about him. He did a cover for Wes Craig. What's Wes's book called again?
Kaya.
Right, Kaya. So it's like every cover that we cycled through of the alternate covers that people had done stuff for Wes looks amazing. As a matter of fact, it was predominantly Wes doing a bunch of different styles. And then we came upon like the one that Matteo did. And by the way, this is a folder that he sent me so we can have stuff playing in the background or we can take a look at it. He included his own cover. This piece of shit thought that it was a good idea to talk about, like, look at this one. And I'm all like, no, that's awful, especially because Wes knows what he's doing with his IP. You clearly just did it for the money. So, thankfully, you're here to just like, again, he's not here. You're here to class up the place. So,
all right. So
thank you so much for that.
I do have one of his books on my shelf. So I have
that's for the
White Knight.
fire pit, right?
Yeah. That's just in case the power runs out in Montana and you have to freaking start a fire somewhere, right? That's fire kindle. What were you saying, Shawn?
I was going to say, so one of the things I did notice when I went to your YouTube channel, you have 22,000 subscribers.
Mm-hmm.
How?
I don't know, man.
Get there?
To be fair, how long had you've had your YouTube channel up for? How many years now?
So I had it when I was in Hawaii, and then when we left, I didn't do anything for a couple years. So it wasn't until I got to Montana, I'm like, and then this last year where I started making videos again, and you know, it shows you how many hours you have to get in order to get monetized. So I was trying to hit those numbers just to see what would happen.
Yeah.
So
so
did
that's
you
how I got there.
remove a bunch of videos? Because when I looked at like the whole library, it wasn't like there was like a ton of videos.
No, I didn't. I just had I have 30 videos or something, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's just like keywords and then just the content. I mean,
Okay, stop there.
just
Can I tell you?
Go into the
like,
keywords.
Shawn is genuinely like perplexed and engaged at the idea that Sia has managed to optimize SEO for her YouTube channel, right? And Shawn is sitting here going like, how did you do that? You know?
No, well, because I feel like I do a ton of things and put so much time and energy into it, and my results are so small. So I am wanting to learn how to optimize what I'm doing.
This
like,
lady
for example,
is a library,
this is
Shawn.
episode 140, and I've got on this channel like 1.7 thousand subscribers.
Yes.
So guide me.
Listen, I don't.
I would love to if Eric would like to to try it out, just to see how it goes.
We should pay her for her time if you're going to ask a big question like that. All right. So generally, what have you found to be successful in as far as your engagement is concerned, in as far as your SEO is concerned?
Well, there's the SEO, but then also like when you're, they always teach you the first 5 minutes has to be a certain way. Don't.
Wait, when you say they always teach you, who's that? Like
sorry, I've been watching tons of like YouTube videos on how to like get your video going, and then like I think the one thing I've done differently that I haven't seen too much of is when I do have a new video, even though it sounds like I'm like, oh, I feel bad, it's only a 10-minute video. I do announce that I have a new video on all my networks, and then I live stream, on the Premiere, it's like a live video, so people are there in the chat and they're engaging, so you're constantly getting people engaging.
So that's what the Premiere, because whenever I upload it says releases Premiere, I didn't even know what that meant.
Oh yeah, that just means that everybody's there watching with you. Basically, is alive. So you're watching it with them, and then I'm in the chat room all the time. And so the first day you get that huge chunk, and as soon as YouTube sees that, they put your video up higher. Plus, you get to engage with your, like, you know, Eric was in the room, and you get to engage with your audience, and like you build a community just by hanging out with them. Yeah, and they give you really good feedback, and so that's how I've done it, and it seems to work. And then obviously, like, I tried not to have bad audio, but that's unavoidable this next time around. So I'm gonna apologize to our buddies. I'm sure you know who it is as soon as I release it, and I'm gonna have to tell him, like, hey, the audio didn't work out too well. I did the best I could. His audio sounds great, but mine was shit. It was so bad.
Why was yours bad? I would thought it was
because so what happened was because of the new app I was using, I forgot what it was. It recorded, it had two microphones going on at the same time. It was the internal mic coming from the computer itself and this mic. So you heard like this buzzing sound the whole 2 hours. But luckily I had two cameras going. So the audio from one of the cameras got picked up, but it was kind of, sounds like you're in an empty, or like you know, there's slight echo. So it is what it is. There's a lot of B-roll. I had to do that.
See that? Okay, I just generally, the note is you got to take this shit seriously. You know what I mean? Like, Again, I'll only speak for myself, but like generally, I'm like, let's just hit the go. I remember when Sia was trying to set up that interview with me, and I was like, what do you want to do? You know, like, you got two cameras, you want us to record on the side? Like, this is a lot of, the point is, it's a lot of work. Shawn, are you prepared to put in this much work?
I mean, yeah, that's what I do.
You don't sound convinced. You do not sound convinced.
I'm excited. I want to try this stuff out with you, because I mean, I think we're all trying to figure stuff out. So if you want to do that, that would be awesome, because it's also fun to see it grow too. It's kind of like a plant.
Yeah. That's, I mean, look, since Matteo and Eric have come on, I've been going up maybe close to 100 a week, which is an accelerated amount of growth compared to what I had previously. But I know I can do better. Now, you mentioned keywords. Can you elaborate on that? Are you talking about in the title, the description?
Usually the title. And so, you know, how they say you have to stagger your thumbnail and the actual words you're using. So
what is that? Wait, explain that.
So, for example, like, so, you know, the thumbnail and the word, the title, usually they're not supposed to overlap, because people see the thumbnail. They don't really, it doesn't really matter what the caption says, and people read the caption. So, for example, you guys, artist podcast, but then it's like comic book artist podcast. So you just have to search, let's just say Google Analytics, and find out which keywords everybody's typing and searching every month, and do the best you can to try to curate your title towards that. I mean, it's not going to be perfect all the time.
Right, but Google will let you know what keywords are being searched the most at that time?
I think you should have it on your analytics. It should.
Oh, okay.
Or if you want to experiment yourself, you could actually start just searching on YouTube and see what pops up, and get an idea of what their titles are, and where you would basically try to match what they write. But then, you know, so that's one thing. But then it also means that initially, prior to your video launching, whatever, to get as many different sources as possible pointing towards it, because it's not always gonna, and then the growth is just quicker if you want to speed up the growth, I guess.
Okay.
And between you three, from what I could tell, I don't think you guys would have a problem. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's honestly one of the main reasons we want an editor, is not to edit the show, but to cut interesting reels that we can put on social media to point towards this. Because we're not, I mean, I'm doing a little bit of that, but it's not even video. It's just, I just put up the thumbnail and with a link on my stories.
Okay.
So that's what that's why I'm trying to find an editor mainly right now for that.
What are you using to edit your videos right now? If you do any editing, you don't?
No,
okay.
We don't. But that's also something that I've been doing this podcast for, Eric, how long has this been?
Too long. As a matter of fact, this
particular episode over 10 years. It used to be just like I started, it's over 10 years ago, and there was no video component when I started it. That's when podcasts were just, you know, audio. And so I started doing it then, and I got good recording equipment, so it sounded good, but I never wanted to edit it, because the conversations and interviews I was doing were very organic and natural. And I felt like we were living in a time where everything you see is curated. And so then what's real? And so I really, the conversations I were having were very deep, personal, real conversations. So I felt like editing it would disrupt what we had captured. So I stay in line with that for the meat of the show. What I would like to have is, before our title screen, just like some sort of catchy, grab your audience clip from the show at the beginning, then the title card goes into the show, and that part it will catch up to.
You mean kind of like when Eric was talking about crying because an X-Men died?
Yeah.
And so that was that was a snippet that I used for our show.
Exactly.
So
so all I need for an editor is that, which isn't hard, and then just to take that same clip and format it for a phone screen, which isn't that hard, I'd imagine.
Okay.
We have one episode that we recorded in Italy in Matteo's studio, where I had to set up like 2 cams. I had my mics on an audio 8-track, and so that one has got a bunch of files that need to be woven together. So every now and then there would be an episode like that, but maybe one a year at most. So generally, I don't need anyone to do any like heavy lifting.
Okay, so if you want, just because I think it'd be really cool to try to figure it out with you, like you could email me some stuff, and then I'll see if I could help you fast track that or figure it out, and like a way to streamline it so that you're not like spending more than 5 minutes on it, I guess. Because I do have a template that I built, or a way of doing it so that every time I have to do a short clip, it's much easier than just having to, because it is a lot of work to edit and stuff like that.
Sure. Yeah, I would really appreciate that. That would be awesome.
Awesome.
See
That's
that
cool. Can you give me 2 seconds? I'm going to do something really quick.
Dude, you should genuinely just like give the lady money. You know what I mean?
This is like magic.
Yeah. Oh, whoa.
Right.
Whoa.
Okay. Oh, the sun's much better now.
Is that a polarizing filter you just put on?
It's a neutral density, so every time it gets bright, I just I turn it so that it darkens the. It's like sunglasses for your lenses.
Yeah,
I guess.
that's amazing. And
I love how you said that. I love how you said that's like you dumbed it down for a couple of dum-dums like us. It's like sunglasses for your lenses, you bunch of children. I actually shoot film, you guys shoot video. You know what I mean? Like it's completely different. I shoot movies.
I don't even know that we shoot video. We shoot streaming.
That's where we're at right now, Sia. We shoot streaming.
I love it. I love it. Only a creative person could come up with those words. I shoot streaming.
But this is DIY. This is punk rock. I like a little grit in everything.
I do too, obviously. Yeah, I can't wait to help you out. That'd be fun for me because I love doing it. And the more that I get to tinker around with, the quicker I'm going to learn something, so that it's going to be more refined. But I love this. This is awesome. Thank you guys for entertaining me, because I feel like I'm screwing up. Like, see.
No, I think you're great.
You're doing great.
This is totally fine. It cutting in and out like that again just gives a tiny break to all the level of professionalism that you're broadcasting right now.
If you want to send this to me, and I could see what I could do with it, and tell me what you think, and I'll
no, don't. We are gonna keep it just like this. It's like it has so much charm because it keeps. I'm not in charge. I'm
gonna put music. I'm gonna put music on it and stuff, and every time there's a goof up, we're gonna have like a violin or something.
It's too production heavy. I mean, I'm sure that's what Shawn, that's what Matteo is, but for me, I have an allergic reaction to overly produced stuff. So
no, I'm not even wanting to take it to like overly produced. I just want basically something to be able to promote this with mainly. That's
actually an interesting conversation that you guys are having, which is to say like the stuff that comes off very sort of I don't know, like the word that keeps coming into my mind is like, oh, here's something that we just did, here's something that we just sat down and just started chatting, right? But to some people, they understand how to leverage that, and it just seems like Sia does, So
yeah,
it's not just the comics, it's not just the filming, it's obviously everything all in one complete package, and it just happens to be and correct me if I'm wrong, it just happens to be that your brain is programmed that way. It's like hardwired to like be curious, right? And then get good at the thing that you're curious about. And to me, it seems pretty clear. You didn't know anything about StreamYard. You needed to go look that up. You didn't know anything about filming.
Yeah. See, you know, what I'm learning is I load myself up with so much work, like at the table, that like if I had to like look up like all the things you're mentioning, like I really have to start doing that, like watching YouTube videos on like what's catchy, like what's a good title and keywords and all that stuff. I need to have time in my life for that, because I'm working harder, not smarter, and I need to change that because it's not working great.
I think we're all there. I think we're all definitely there, because like I know that, I mean, I have a lot of work at my desk, and I know that, you know, obviously this is probably not the most obvious use of my time, but I realize that I'm like you, like I feel like I'm working harder, not smarter, because at some point I do want to start to sell and market my own stuff. And unfortunately, with what we have to work with right now, it's really hard to do that unless you really put yourself out there and to become independent and like, you know, because otherwise these companies do rely on you to market and promote your own stuff. And if you want, like, I just feel like I need to have some level of control over my, like, whether it's image or not having someone shut the door in my face one day because they think they can. And that's the reason why I kind of also do it. It's just like, I'm tired of just sitting there drawing things that either I'm not passionate about, or I feel like there's just something wrong with it. And it just feels too stale, you know, or sterile in a way.
Yeah.
So yeah, so this is kind of
interesting. Let's go back. This like, there's a lot in that what you just said, which is number one, like you guys are talking about working, you guys are catching yourself working harder, that's smarter. And Shawn and I talked about this just previously in the previous episode, which is like, hey, I'm going to go to New York Comic Con. And I said, cool, man. He's very enthusiastic about going because of the opportunities that have been set up in the past for him. But he asked me if I was going, and I was like, I don't think that's right for me, only because I'm looking at the amount of money that I'm spending. By the way, I'm not like begrudging Shawn. Like, we just had this extended conversation about like, just because that's how it's been done doesn't necessarily mean we should continue to do that same exact thing. Is there another lever that we can pull on that'll yield the same kind of results? We just don't pull on it because we haven't put it through the stress test yet, you know? For instance, Shawn's example was like, the reason why, like, for instance, last year I went there, Shawn, if I'm misrepresenting you, please jump in. You're like, I went there last year and I happened to get a job there, and now it's ongoing for me. It's really this exciting thing. And I thought like, cool, but the end goal is to get a job, right? It just happens to be at New York Comic Con, which costs this much money, right? So I thought, what can you do instead of, you know, what can you do to optimize for getting that job without having to go through a budgetary strain that's going to New York Comic Con, where the question mark is, you know, what is it 50-50? Is it 70-30 that you're going to get that, right? Then you go, can I, if the same exact percentage works in my favor, if I just stood at home, but I just did this instead, and it's still 50-50, then to me, stay home, right? Or if it's even better, right? If you can leverage it to go like, well, I'm not spending that kind of money, my chances go down to like 60, you know, like 40%, me not 60%, I'm not getting the job, but I'm not spending that money. You need to start putting yourself through the mental paces of like, okay, I can live with that because I'm not spending that kind of upfront cash, you know? So that's one. The other one is like, you guys were talking about working harder, and that kind of fits in line with the spirit of what we're talking about, which is like, I could spend, and this is something that I was talking to with a bunch of people from Iconic, where we were talking about the idea of like being a creator-owned, having creator-owned books, being a creator, and not having the sort of infrastructure under us that the mainstream does, right? And so there is this common thing that I saw when I first went into this space of like, oh, you've got a live stream, you know, you've got to build your community that way. You've got to get a bunch of like-minded people, have them get to know you, have them get to know the project that you're working on. And I thought, well, again, just not even thinking about it, I just went with that game plan. I took their playbook and said, I'm going to use that. And I'd realized, wait a second, this is not fun for me. Right? Some people are built for this, right?
Yeah.
But what is the end goal? The end goal is have them get to know me as a creator and have them get to know the thing that I'm working on. If I can get there independent of this thing, right? Then why do I continue to use that playbook, especially if it's not working for me? And so the guys at Iconic have like said, okay, we don't do live streams because it doesn't work for us. What else is at our disposal, right? And so one of the guys there was like, so Eric, you can go and cut your own grass. You know, like that'd be totally acceptable. You can buy all the equipment to go cut your own grass and blah, blah, blah. Like, but would you rather stay on the creative side of the fence and, you know, expend the kind of money that it needs for somebody to cut your grass for you, because you're going to end up doing it on your, you know, because the time, energy, resource, potentially the money that you take away from staying on the creative side is not going to bear the kind of fruit in order to make sure that lawn is kept. And I was like, it's mind blowing. That kind of like thinking, you as independent creators, we need to get into that space. Ultimately, the idea is, what is the end goal, and what are we doing smarter? Because we're deciding in this case to stay on the creative side of the fence and paying out, or to say, you know, hey, I know I want to stay on the creative side of the fence, right? But I, like in Siya's case, like she's genuinely wired that way to learn and want to do this thing. Me personally, I'm not wired like that at all. I'd rather say, hey, if I can afford to do it, or do the very, very bare minimum, and say like I'm getting the kind of similar results, not identical results as Siya and you are, Shawn. I'd rather opt that way because I know I'm not going to be able to do it well. I'd rather do what I can or reach out to somebody who can do it well. Does that make sense to everybody?
Totally.
Oh yeah, I think I agree. I completely agree. I think we get to retrofit our own little way of going about things now, whereas before everybody had the exact same way of doing something. But I think now it's like it's a very personal experience and market on how you get out there. And I think that's why I'm okay doing it this way. But I wouldn't recommend everybody do it the way I'm doing it, because a lot of it, it's like willing to fail in front of everybody. And or you know, like not do so well, and I'm okay with that. But at the same time, like I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I at least didn't try. And I know that like what Eric is saying, if it doesn't work for you, you would know, you'll feel that friction. So you got to find a different way. Whereas before you felt that friction and you had to go that route that everybody else went. Whereas now, like we could find and figure out ways of doing things differently. And just stick with it, I guess, if it works for you, because eventually it's going to get you somewhere. Because it literally happened overnight, where I went from, I think it was 6,000 subscribers on YouTube to 22,000. And I was in shock, because
overnight,
practically within like 3 or 4 days. I have to look at my analytics, but one video just took off. And I'm like, well, okay, this is you know, it's not going to happen all the time. So I'm just going to keep a consistent
that's great.
Do what I know works. But I mean, it's not every video is going to be what you would call go viral. So at least there should be a consistent number that I'm hitting, that I know is like an average number that is sustainable. And I don't have crazy expectations of getting 1 million subscribers overnight or something. So
So
you know,
with that video, do you have any guesses as to why that one caught fire?
I'm gonna, I think so. And you know, you have to see when the algorithms, you kind of sense when they change. And so it was because I was only a few hours away. I don't know, it was like 40 or 50 from being monetized. And YouTube's probably like, well, let's monetize this person, so let's just stick them up there. And then I started using like the keywords and stuff. And also it was Lady Mechanica. So Joe Benitez on his Facebook channel or Facebook page basically said, hey, there's gonna be a video of the behind the scenes stuff. So when you have things like that happening, that's when I knew what the formula was to get it to do that again consistently, was to help market it outside of YouTube itself, to use the right, you know, as best as you can, the keywords, and then to just kind of push it initially, and then obviously try to maintain that quality and keep it, you know, not drag it on too long for the sake of whatever length, because they say, oh, it's got to be at least 10 minutes. Well, I don't think that's true. It's just the quality of the video. Or your content, like really, it's just the content. So
sure.
Because I think, Eric, your video is an hour and 24 minutes long.
Yeah, and you got like 3 watchers, and I paid top
Yeah,
dollar
whatever, dude.
for people to watch. I watched it 5 times myself just to get those numbers up a little bit. I sat there and watched my video for 5 hours.
Well,
see,
so
Shawn?
when the opportunity came to monetize, you went for it?
Oh yeah, I did. I totally did. And I just got my full disclosure. I just got my first payout from them yesterday. So it was like, I did it. Yay.
Congratulations, dude.
Thank you.
How often do they pay?
Well, the initial payment is like, you have to hit $100. And after that, I don't know. I didn't look into it. I just know I hit that number. So I'm like, okay, cool. So because at least something's working.
I got an email saying, hey, you're eligible for monetization. And we've been discussing, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Should we turn it on or not?
You don't have to, but it's a good measuring tool, you know, to see how well your channel is doing. I don't turn it on for everything. Only a few videos I turn it on.
Oh, you turn it on and off for each video. Okay.
Yeah, it all depends. And I try not to do it right away. I wait until a week or 2 weeks before I turn it on because I don't want people to be bombarded with ads like when they start out.
Right,
so it's usually a slightly older video, and that's why it took so long to get to that point. But it's a good barometer of where you're at with your content and just things like that. Because, you know, I have a website, I know you guys do, and a shop. So at the very least, it's like free. I mean, if you think about it, free advertising when you have your videos and people see it, and it never ends. Like, people are always going to discover it. Whereas with ads, you basically have to pay just to get people to see your stuff, you know?
Right.
So
that's a lot of smart thinking, dude.
Yeah.
Get on that smart thinking bandwagon, dude.
I need a new brain. You got to give me a new brain, Eric. Like, let's start a GoFundMe.
I got another
brain transplant.
I think when somebody
Neuralink.
There you go.
When somebody has an entrepreneurial programming, as SIYA does, it's so interesting to be in sort of like in the audience for it.
Yeah.
Because not many people think of, again, people take a look at other people's playbooks. By the way, I don't think poorly of that. I just think that it's the, what's the best way to describe it? It's sort of like, hey, you saw something work over there, so I'll do it too, right? It's borderline lazy, but not in a derogatory way, because it's like, hey, I know that it works. Why wouldn't I pull on that lever, you know? But to me, I almost think of it as like, oh, it's not because you did a lot of heavy thinking about that thing, not because you thought about it and it really sat down and understood the nuances of it. You heard somebody say, oh, you've got to make YouTube videos, but you didn't really understand what that ultimately means in as far as like how it works in your particular ecosystem, right? So when people who have the tools clearly understand the implementation of those tools, you can see how they use it, right? You can see, but there's some people who are like, oh, I just do it because of X, Y, and Z. I watched a YouTube video that did it. I don't know how it personally impacts me. I just heard that they do it, blah, 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 right? Because you can go to like, and as far as production value is concerned, you can go to the nth level that SIYA is doing it. Like literally she put on a lens and we were both like a magic trick. We were both like, oh my gosh, it's so cool, you know? But you also see people go to the other nth of the spectrum, which is to say like, they just turned the camera on, right? They pulled on the lever, the other thing that SIYA was talking about, which is like, ultimately it's about the content. What are you talking about that people gravitate to that really makes them engage with your thing? So there's a bunch of little sliders, you know, and I don't know if there's one specific formula in which you go, if I check all of these boxes, this is going to be freaking awesome. Because I think also at the end of the day, like you saw the video, if it wasn't SIYA in those videos, I don't care, you know, what the lighting looked like. I don't care what the camera lens she uses, and I don't care what she's talking about. The individual also plays a key role in being able to talk about things either not and entertainingly, right, or you know, with a level of nuance and knowledge, or both, right? So I think there's a lot of things that people should not take for granted when you're making these kinds of content for YouTube. And then ultimately, like, and then the other question is like, and I heard this a bunch of times, to be like, oh, you got to have a YouTube channel, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, do you? Do you need a YouTube channel, right? And maybe, but it's sometimes you start that YouTube channel up, and let's say like in the worst case scenario, you're like, wow, you're boring as fuck. You know, like,
Yeah.
nobody
There's
wants to
plenty
watch
of that
it.
out there, though.
No, I agree. I agree. And that almost, it's like you see the success of that boring person, you're like, that's the brand, because they're like freaking boring as fuck. And people love them. I heard, and see, and I know this person. There's this guy called Perch on YouTube and on and Twitter. He's got like dad voice, you know, like he's the same kind of energy that guy who is like, what is that channel? And I think you guys know it. It's like, you know, something like What My Dad Never Told Me. It's like the channel that people who don't have dads, his whole thing is like, here's how you tie a tie. Here's how you change the oil in your car. Here's how you change
an actual
like
channel.
It's a YouTube channel and it's bonkers good,
Smart.
right? It's
That's
all
smart.
this stuff. It's all the stuff that your dad would teach you, but your dad never taught you because for whatever reason, your position in life, you never had these opportunities. Similar to that, Perch talks in that same kind of like, this is so matter-of-factly that this level-headed person talks about comics in their attitude and their outward sort of like position on the comic book industry, that people who think with the logic, by the way, I don't agree with everything that Perch says, but there are times when I'm like, dude, that's really, really super smart. And that's the reason why their channel is successful. And I'm like, does he need a YouTube channel? And does he optimize like every opportunity he gets? He talks about how he doesn't optimize for any sort of SEOs at all. Right? He just turns it on because it's the kind of stuff that he likes talking about. And he's incredibly knowledgeable about that thing, but he never turns on that camera. You know, which is another thing that people say, like, oh, you need to turn on chat camera because people want to see you and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, there is no 100% formula. You just have to find out. You just have to understand what your audience is and what they're keyed into.
And yourself too. So there's got to be a match between the audience you want and the kind of content you want to put out. You know, because I love filmmaking so much, it's kind of hard for me to not do that. But I'm sure I could probably do the Perch thing and just like, no, maybe not. I don't know about that.
I'm just gonna say you could, but would you still be as zoned in as you are right now? I think one of the key things that I've seen based on your videos is like, oh, she really loves shooting this beautiful footage.
Absolutely.
You know, like she really absolutely is into understanding what her angles are, what the audience experience is, right? Like when you have a camera that far away from your desk, like literally my camera is like this close to my face. Like, we could like, hey, this camera can sit on the desk and therefore that's where it sits. You, on the other hand, I remember you're like, that camera is off to this side because not just because for the aesthetic of it, because you want to have an audience experience. You're thinking about that as a filmmaker and as a person who's shooting this footage. We don't care. Like this is like there's an air conditioner and a paper shredder on this side. There's like the chair is literally making contact with my head.
It's funny you say that, but it's because you have narrow depth of field. It's all nice and blurry in the background. And
yeah, that's my thinking. That's my thinking.
The fact that you were thinking about that, I don't care. I was like, hey, I just want a nice camera. But there's like added levels of like this camera and this lens, right? So I don't think that you could keep it away from your footage. There's a lot of planning. There's a lot of thoughtfulness that goes on there, you know? So, but again, it's not for everybody. You said it earlier, which is like, what is the connection that you want your audience to have, right? And then, and it's different for everyone. But for me, if I were to start and I can't remember, again, it was probably Perch who said it, is like, there's a lot of people who talk from a creator-owned perspective, launch these YouTube channels, and they end up talking about themselves, but rare do they talk about the projects that they're working on.
Oh, you know, that's interesting.
Right. And it's like, oh, yeah, sure. It's like, cool. You're ex-creator, but do you ever spend any time talking about your main characters at all? And like, that's brilliant. That's actually another button. That's another slider that these people are not taking enough advantage of. They don't work on explaining to their potential audience about their books, about their project. And I go like, if I ever do this in earnest, I think I would go down that path. I think that's what I would love. That's what I would talk more about anything else. Than,
I think we should do an episode of this on Arcathena. And talk about that.
Thank God. I don't know how many times I need to freaking hint at it, Shawn.
We'll do an
Oh my God.
Argentina
I don't know how many
episode.
times I had to like drive the car around the block, blinking the Arc Athena. Like it's almost like Domino's pizza sign on the roof of my particular delivery car. Talk about this, Shawn. No, let's talk about Italy. Let's talk about Matteo. Let's talk about this awful thing that he did called Mr. Freeze. It's like, it's just like, I don't know how many times I need to say, Shawn, talk about my book. Talk about my book. You know,
Well, let's
it feels
get that on the books.
it
Just me
feels
and
weird
Mateo.
when I do it, but if somebody else does it, oh, it's amazing. It feels natural. It feels organic.
So
I
we'll
don't know.
do
I
it.
need to
We'll
like
get it on the book.
blink 3 times if you want to talk about my book or something like that.
We'll get it on the books, man. I promise. But yeah, speaking of which, let's use the last bit of this podcast to talk about your creator-owned stuff.
How many? You are now 300 pages deep, right? Yeah, it's 400 pages deep, I think.
No, I'm not actually.
What's interesting is she's like, oh, I like doing all of these things, but I also sit behind my desk. So here's the difference between bums like us and the superstar that is this young lady. Like when we take time away from whatever it is that we're doing, like for conventions or whatever it is, it's clear that something suffers. I don't know in the capacity of her output if anything suffers in your productivity, right? Because you're 300 pages deep into this project that you're doing. You're doing all the filmmaking and you're going out into the woods and getting lost and coming back alive. I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, I
Right?
don't know either.
Something is happening there. Talk about your project. How do you stay on track with this stuff because you have so many interests that you excel at?
I mean, I try to overlap things, I guess, because when I'm out in the woods, I bring my work with me. And so the next video for Lady Mechanica, I'm actually drawing it while I'm sitting in a lawn chair in the campground. And then I'm filming, so I'm doing 3 things at the same time. So there's an overlap. Otherwise, there's no way in heck this is even remotely possible. And when I'm drawing, I mean, the camera is on the whole time, or as much as it can be. And so I'm focused on the page and not that. And if I'm talking, I happen to be, my microphone's on. So if I happen to have an idea or I want to mention something on the page, it's like I'm talking to it as if someone's sitting there. So when I do the editing and stuff, it's a lot easier for me to do that for my own stuff and not screwing up the audio and stuff like that. And then, so I mean, it's just timing stuff. Plus my fiance, he's also an artist. So we have like this, we're very competitive where if he's working a long time and he's at his desk, I'm like, man, I feel like I have a big bum.
God, that's awesome.
So there's always that. And then there's always that energy level of like trying to get stuff done, even though like, we have family things that we got to deal with, like we all do.
Sure.
Yeah, you do the best you can, I guess. But
it's just
working from home makes it easier too.
It's so incredible how you're staying productive. I mean, I said in my mind to be a cartoonish number. Are you somewhere close to 300 with this new? By the way, are you at liberty to talk about the nuances of this new project that you're working on?
Oh yeah, of course.
Not the Lady Mechanica stuff, but the creator.
I mean, I'm not at 300, but at the same time, I have the layouts ready to go. So I mean, for me, it's kind of like with you. I don't tighten my pencils. The inking is like super quick, and the reason why right now I'm taking less time on that and I'm doing Lady Mechanica is because the Kickstarter's happening soon for Lady Mechanica. So I got a few more pages. I'm just gonna push that through. And then I could, my time is more freed up to do my book. But I mean, I know I'm going to finish it and I want to finish it like fast, but I don't want to be reckless with it either. Since I've obviously got into something that I didn't realize I could because now I do have an audience waiting to see, like, is this going to get done in the way that she thinks it's going to get done? So this is like a process that since I'm filming it, I have more of I'm more invested in it now than I was prior to starting it. So. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. The page count that you're at 200, 300.
No.
Are you embarrassed to say? Is it like something that's really high, and both Shawn and I are going to feel bad about?
No. Well, I mean, and the book is only 120 pages for the first manga, and since it's smaller format, it's like drawing on copy paper almost. It's super quick. I don't have that many pages. I'm more like 50. But
I was going to say, like, it's only 120 pages, so it's incredible that you made 200 pages because it's only a 120 page book. You went above and beyond what you needed.
From 300 to 200.
Yeah, I'm just listening. I'm trying to set the right expectation with their families, who by the way are incredibly kind. I see you was saying I was sitting in the premiere of the episode that she and I did. and the audience very sort of like accommodating, like I said, very kind. They are clearly invested in the success that is her project, but also her as a creator, which is, it's so fascinating. We were talking again, we all talk about this offline, how different the tools are that are at our disposal these days, as opposed to when we started first dealing with, you know, mainstream publications, even Image, which is, you know, I think as mainstream as anything else, you know.
Sure.
So it's interesting to not have to worry about that as much, right? And actually leverage the tools that are available to say, like, okay, I kind of know how this works. You know, I kind of know how YouTube works. I kind of know how people engage on social media. And what we do with that now is so, like, it's incredible to me to think about, because again, not having that at our disposal back in the day and having those buttons to press these days, right? I think it's like I think it's so vast where the people that we can reach out to, the potential audience that's out there for us.
And you can't hide behind mistreating. In my own personal philosophy is, you can't hide behind those things that you did and treat your fan base like garbage. Really, that's the reason why I engage with them online, is because a lot of them follow us around for decades, really. Yeah. And you know, and they remember things about you that you didn't remember, and it's so flattering. And the fact that you could at least engage with them, and they're very honest with you, and I mean, if you don't mean any harm, a lot of times they understand, and you could be real with them. And so that's kind of my philosophy with this now. Whereas before, yeah, we didn't have those tools, and maybe some people hid behind being a certain way to their fan base and people, and you just have to level with them. We're all pretty much adults, and even teenagers, you know, they get it. And if they don't, then that's not your problem. That's their problem. So
right.
What I think, you know, in a way, like what these races, they're both for good and bad, depending on like how you accidentally or purposely leverage them, right? Like in the past, what you'd get contact with, and as far as your creators were concerned, ultimately it was always work first, right? And maybe you read an interview or see a video about them working or something like that. But these days, everything is out front and sort of like just like being presented to you in such a way. And there's at least in some creators that we've run into, you're like, oh, you probably would have thrived better in that environment, because there was a filter that prevented people from getting to know you a little bit better. Either that, or you need to curate the kind of stuff that gets out there, because there's some people who are like, somebody needs to be at the front end of how you're presenting yourself, because man, that is not favorable to you.
You can't unsee stuff. I want to disconnect it, and you can to some extent. Yeah. It all depends on the level of like how much you put yourself in front of it. And I mean, I wouldn't say I'm a victim of it, but I definitely, because I started out really early on online. Like I made a bunch of missteps, but I walked into it knowing that there might be some missteps, and Google is forever, right? And stuff like that. But by no means should you ever disrespect it. So if you don't disrespect people in real life, you know, I say why do it online? So I just take the approach I have in person as I would online, which I would like some people to do, but at the same time, that's not my problem, you know?
Yeah. We have a saying on this show. It's called "Not my monkeys, not my circus."
Yes.
What is it? I like it. What is it?
I said the term is "Not my monkeys, not my circus." It's, you know, oftentimes like when we see the stuff that's happening out there.
That's true.
Our internal inclination as human beings is to go engage, because oftentimes we'll have an opinion about it. But at that point, it's like, I made somebody else's business my business. Matteo said, exactly, you know, don't make your issues my issues. You know, like that's the thing that people have a tendency to do in social media. Is if the example that he used was, he follows comedians, and this particular comedian put it online that he's now in a specific like financial bracket that allows him to kind of show off this thing that he'd been working towards his entire career. And somebody came in and said like, hey, maybe you shouldn't be that flamboyant about this car that you just bought or this piece of property that you have. Right. And the guy's like, was like, wait a second, that's your issue, right? You don't know how hard I worked in order to get into this space. I'm not bragging about this. You know, like I'm literally saying, look at the fruits of this thing that I worked super hard about. And
you should be motivated.
Right. You can, I mean, potentially that could be coming off as bragging, but at the end of the day, that's not my intent. And somebody had the audacity to come in there and be like, hey man, stop showing off. It's more like, don't make your issues my issues. My thing is like, I worked really hard, you know?
Exactly.
So similar to that, we talk about, hey, that's not my monkeys. That's not my circus. So I don't talk about that stuff because it shouldn't impact the things that I'm dealing with.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. Yeah. Precisely.
Now to your point, Shawn has spent decades just browbeating his audience. He has just said, I am up here. You are down here. Look at this podcast that I have. You know, look at all these people that I can bring on. And we're very grateful, as you said, I think there's something profound about that, which is like the internet can be potentially forever. Right. We are so very grateful that Shawn is getting over himself finally after decades of just being in love with the idea of the sound and smell of himself. That we can finally
smell myself.
We can finally join him. You know, all right, so that's our hour. Thank you so much. We're going to put all of your social media stuff up on this episode, which is so weird to me because you guys just spent like 10-15 minutes talking about how you have 20,000 people and we have like 15 bots that we pay for on the consistent.
You actually still don't get 15 listeners. I don't understand that one.
Yeah, we pay for them. They rarely show up. So
the bots
you're doing us the favor by hanging out. Shawn's gonna do extra work in order to make people aware that you're on this show, and hopefully we can ride on your coattails. I'm gonna hit this outro bumper now. See ya.
Okay, and I'll do the same for you guys because it's fun. It's all fun and games until everybody sees our podcast.
Yeah. Until somebody messes so much. All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3.
All right, later.
This is the Inkpulp podcast. This is the Inkpulp podcast. Comics, hip hop, life.